Welcome to Raising a Beautiful Mind, the podcast where we have real conversations about youth mental health to empower families and transform systems. With guest Elena Breese, a Boston Marathon bombing survivor and mental health advocate. All right, so in this episode, I'm super excited to be able to introduce Elena Breese. Elena is a blogger and a mental health advocate and has done the speaking circuit and had lots and lots of interviews, and we will get to hear why. Elena, why don't you start just by telling us a little bit about how your life and mental health intersected?
Yeah, so I'm a wife, a mother, and I happen to be a Boston Marathon bombing survivor as well. And that is where my trauma happened. And I was diagnosed 3.5 years later with PTSD symptoms when I was voluntarily hospitalized. And I've worked very hard every day since to heal and grow from my experience at the finish line.
Yeah, that's a tremendous moment in time, a life-changing moment. Do you feel like talking about any of that? Because I don't want to.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. I've been through a lot of trauma therapy, EMDR therapy. I still go. I'm still uncovering things about myself, so I'm able to talk about it pretty freely now.
Okay, do you want to tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what that moment, what that
Sure.
experience was like?
Yeah, so I was at the marathon because my husband was running. He was about 2.5 miles from the finish line when the bombs went off. I was with my brother-in-law standing in the stands directly across the street from where the first bomb went off. And there were about 12 seconds between the two bombs. And so those seconds now, I can really slow them down and remember, the sights, the sounds. I remember seeing, the way the people across the street from me were reacting to the bombing. And those moments really shattered my safety bubble that we all have going through life until something kind of pops it, right? And at the time, my kids were very small. They were 3 and 6 months old. So when we got back to Phoenix, I was just really focused on being a mom and trying to forget like everything that I had been through there and move on with my life, right? But our bodies and brains aren't programmed to do that. And I think for a lot of people, the PTSD symptoms can manifest differently. I know a lot of people who have now drinking issues or drug issues or and that's how they're coping. But for me, a lot of my trauma came out in somatic symptoms. So I was having a lot of body symptoms. I felt sick basically for 3.5 years, and then the symptoms over that period of time just kind of escalated to nightmares, sleep disturbances, unending anxiety and depression. And it got to the point where I was afraid to go to sleep because I was having such bad nightmares. And then I kind of stopped eating in the midst of that too. So the not sleeping coupled with the not eating, I think just kind of put me on the fast track to needing emergency mental health. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, first, I'm so sorry that you've had to go through this. Nobody deserves to go through any trauma. I can't even begin to imagine how scary that was in that moment, but how scary the aftermath was too, because I think sometimes people think trauma, you go through it and then you just move on. And it doesn't work that way. Trauma embeds in every cell of our bodies. And so when you were experiencing some of these symptoms, did you know at the time? I mean, were you connecting the dots
I
that
was
this?
not. I
You
was
talk
not
about that?
connect. Yeah, I think I had never really had mental health challenges before that. I had a bit of postpartum with my daughter, but it wasn't top of mind because I had just had my son and I had felt fine. So I
Mhm.
wasn't um having, those symptoms a second time around. And um but I even after with my postpartum, I was able to really work through it with exercise and take care of myself. And then I was able to get better. So I had never had um, like prolonged mental health challenges before the bombing. And I think because the symptoms were so bad, but I was so far removed from the bombing. I was like 3.5 years out, right? um, I just was not making the connection back. And I don't know, PTSD um wasn't talked about as much in the media at that point. I mean, this is 2016, so we didn't really have celebrities talking about PTSD yet. Um, all of the information surrounding the discussion was very military and veteran focused.
Mm.
And so here I was, a suburban housewife, mom, worker. I
Mhm.
was in marketing at the time,
Mhm.
and I just did not think it was something that could affect me.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I was hospitalized and they basically told me there, we think you have PTSD, and we're gonna stabilize you, and then you're gonna leave, and you need to find like a trauma therapist. And they kind of gave me like a few computer like print offs about
Yeah.
PTSD, but they really did not have a lot to give me. And so that's where I started my journey, was in the hospital because my experience was so bad there. And it kind of just it lit a fire within me to like fight for myself, because I knew no one else would do it the way it needed to be done.
I am so glad and I'm so proud of you. And I'm so inspired because I think one of the hardest things in our world, unfortunately, when it comes to mental health, is there's still such a stigma. And so if I'm having a heart emergency, I go to the doctor, I don't think
Hmm.
twice. If I'm in the middle of an asthmatic attack, if I have insulin shock, these are all things I go to the hospital for. I don't think twice. And a mental health emergency is the same thing. It's a medical, nobody wakes up one day and goes, I think it'd be really fun to have depression or to be in crisis. Nobody does
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
because it's an involuntary medical condition that requires treatment just like anything else.
Hmm.
So, your point though about getting the little handouts on the way out, I think that's the experience that many people have. Can you talk about, I'm out of curiosity, when they say you need to find a trauma therapist, and was it as easy as you just found somebody and it was
No.
good? And okay,
No.
I wondered because I was going to be excited for you if it was. Can you talk about what that
Yeah, I
was?
mean, I had to kiss a lot of frogs before I found my prince. In the therapy world, I guess. Yeah, the first therapist, well, they made the appointment for me. So when I got out, I had to have these appointments to go to. The first person that I went to basically did not believe I needed EMDR therapy. And I don't really know if she was a skilled person to practice it anyway. I think it does take a lot of training and skill to administer that kind of therapy.
Mhm.
And again, I think not that it was so new, but people were just kind of starting to talk about EMDR therapy and it being different, or like cognitive behavioral therapy. So I saw her, and um and then she left the practice, and I got pushed to somebody else who didn't. I wasn't getting better. I mean, I was still crying over the bombing as if it had just happened. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't moving past it. I was having still a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and my symptoms were not getting much better. And then I found a practice near me, and a woman who specialized in treating veterans and first responders,
Okay.
an EMDR therapist. I reached out to her, and she accepted to take me on because of my trauma. And now we've been together almost 7 years. So it's it's hard. You have to like, you're not going to find the right therapist right away, and it makes the struggle even more discouraging and
Yeah.
exhausting because you're already so tired with what you're going through.
Right. And frustrating and
Yeah.
hopeless. Like when you're like, I'm
Yeah.
desperately wanting help. Why is this so hard
Yeah.
to find somebody? And I think, you bring up a really good point that I think a lot of people don't realize too, is that not all therapists have the same training. Not
Mhm.
all therapists and unfortunately, there's a great book by Dr. Thomas Insel. He used to be the head of the NIMH. It's called Healing Our Path from Mental Illness to Mental Health. And he talks about how, we don't need more therapists. We need more mental health professionals that are highly trained and rigorously trained to be able to assess their patients coming in and
Mhm.
provide them treatment based on what their needs are. So not
Mhm.
all patients should be getting CBT. Not everybody should just be doing EMDR. Not everybody shouldn't be a one-trick pony. And if you
Mhm.
aren't able to assess that to be able to help provide adequate treatment, then that person's not going to be any better off. And I
Mhm.
think you're a great example of, you could do CBT till you're blue in the face, but for you, EMDR was really, it sounds like, the game changer.
It was, but also I want to emphasize that I put together a team of doctors who were going to take care of me. It was like, and I say this a lot, I became the CEO of my own healing. I found an acupuncturist who specializes in mental health treatment, a naturopathic doctor who could look at me from that perspective. I worked with a very holistic psychiatrist and still do. So and and on top of that, I exercise a lot, I eat well, I get good rest. Like this, you have to come at PTSD from so many angles. It's not just therapy. It's like a myriad of modalities that you need to explore in order to heal. I don't know.
Yeah, I love this
Yeah.
because this
Uh-huh.
is a huge, huge thing. This holistic view that just doing one little thing isn't going to be the cure all. Did
Hmm.
you have, I mean, because you mentioned that you had to kiss a bunch of frogs to get to the
Hmm.
prince for therapy, but right off the bat, were you forming your own team? Did that come after
Hmm.
trial and error? What did that look like?
No, yeah. I mean, when you leave a mental hospital, they basically get you into all these doctors right away. Like you can't leave there unless you have appointments with different people who are
Mhm.
going to now take over your care. And none of the people that they referred me to were good. So I had to really spend a lot of time, and effort finding who I felt comfortable, um, to take care of me.
Yeah.
And because when you're in that state, you're almost like a newborn, and you need people to like love on you and take care of you. And not everyone approaches their practice or their patients that way.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate that I was able to find incredible people who they all still take care of me to this day. So
I love
yeah.
that. Well, and
Yeah.
when you were discharged, it is usually standard practice that the hospital will make sure that you have follow-up appointments, but they weren't helping you with holistic appointments, were they?
No.
Acupuncture. Okay.
No.
That was something.
No, I uncovered all of that,
Okay.
um as I went through the process of talking to people, asking a lot of questions. Um I pretty much started with a naturopathic doctor,
Mhm.
and she was able to really help direct me in some areas and find an acupuncturist um, and find a holistic psychiatrist. Like, we were able to put it together, but you have to like ask the questions. You have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah,
That's the hardest part.
it is.
Yeah.
Navigating is a nightmare. So
Mhm.
what do you think and maybe it's hard to guess what it would be like without, but you really have a very comprehensive response, a very holistic response, and you're hitting all sorts of marks. What would it look like if you didn't? Have you tried to not, just do therapy or not do anything
Yeah.
versus what does it do for you to have all of those elements?
Well, the best example is medication for me. Um, the medications they had me on in the hospital were really bad for me. I mean, I left there worse than when I got there. And my naturopathic doctor helped me for many years treat myself naturally.
Okay.
And then in 2021, I felt I had exhausted um, all of what I was willing to do anymore. I was getting to another challenging place with my healing journey, and I just knew I needed more stability with my anxiety and depression. And um, I then started working with a psychiatrist and found medications. We did some genetic testing before she even prescribed, and that dwindled down like the whole list of medications that would even work with my metabolism. And and so I've been working with her ever since, and I've been able to capture greater balance in my moods that I wasn't able to do holistically. So um I think what it takes is an open-mindedness, a willingness to try anything and do anything if it means you might heal, even if it's just 5%. 5% is something. And maybe not all of these things will work for you now, but maybe as life goes on and as your body changes, um, maybe they will. So it's hard because it's ever changing. I think that's what it is. I
It
could go
is.
on and on and on and on about it. Yeah.
No, but it is hard because it's like, my own therapist, I say sometimes, I'm like, oh, I feel like, I'm in this healing thing. And she said, yeah, you might be now, but just remember, it's kind of like this,
Yeah.
and you don't hit a line where everything then is okay and I can tap
Right.
out of this. It becomes part of who you are,
Mhm.
especially in being able to, when we say self care, I push back on that because I think it's so commercialized that people think if I
Mhm.
just take a bath and light a candle, I'm good. But it's really has to be about so multifaceted how we
Mhm.
approach life, how we take care of ourselves. And
Mhm.
that's why your comprehensive, holistic approach, but also being open minded and saying, I need more than that. At the end of the day, that's the best thing for you because it's hitting what you really need. That's true self-care is doing what we need to make
Mhm.
sure that we're healthy. And that's hard because it's not like
Yeah, and
a
I
destination.
also think it's not just about things that you add to your life. It's
Right.
also about things that you take away.
Yes. Boundaries.
And this is a part people don't like to hear. But I have been sober for 7 years, so I never really had an alcohol abuse issue, but I was definitely propping myself up with caffeine and alcohol when I was sick. So I would have a couple drinks at night to help myself sleep, even though
Mhm.
it didn't help. And
Yeah.
then when I didn't sleep well, I would use caffeine during the day, and then I would feel awful and anxious and jittery. So like, I have not had coffee or alcohol in it was 7 years in July. and also people. Like I had to get rid of a lot of people that weren't, they just were not going to come along with me on the healing journey. I actually had a friend who believed that like the bombing really didn't happen, that it was like a staged thing, and she told me this. So again, like you have to draw boundaries in your life and eliminate things. Eliminating things also helps you heal.
Yeah, and that's tough.
Yeah. I
Real
know.
tough.
Yeah, I can laugh about it
Congratulations.
now, but it was not easy.
No,
Yeah.
there's so much right there. Like, first, congratulations, because that's not easy, and whether there's a problem or not, to just cut things out of our lives, whether it's
Mhm.
coffee and booze or it's friends. But at the same time, your story, just what your friend said, that, a
Mhm.
trauma upon a trauma,
Mhm.
and how unfortunate that was, but how brilliant you were to protect yourself with a boundary on that, because after everything that you had been through, to have that other layer of a trauma
Mhm.
added, ew, ick, ick.
Yeah, and I have survivor friends whose marriages haven't survived this. I mean, look, it goes much deeper and farther than just a friend saying that. I've been fortunate, like my husband and I have made it through. We've worked really hard, but it is not easy. And it's not easy also being a parent while you're managing this too. So,
Yeah, talk about that.
yeah.
That's something that I wondered, because at the time you had two very
Mhm.
little ones,
Mhm.
and they weren't with you, right? They
No,
were
they were not. They were
right.
here home.
Right.
Yeah.
But coming back, and as a parent, there's this, obligation that you have to continue to take care of them. But at that point, I can't even imagine how you were possibly taking care of yourself. How did that all go?
I don't even know. I don't think I
Yeah.
did it well, to tell you the truth. I struggled for a
Yeah.
long time with that. And I think also going on medication has helped that. I'm able to be so much more present with them. And um, yeah, I do. If any, if I ever had any anger about the bombing in my life, it's it's it is really, sorry, it's emotional. It is acknowledging the pain that it caused me as a mom and my with my children. Um, yeah, sorry.
No, please
I
don't
think that's
apologize.
what has been the hardest part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I can't imagine not being emotional, and I appreciate
yeah,
that you're willing to be vulnerable and share some of the hardest moments, probably the hardest moment of your life.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think therapy has been so good in that because it's given me so much awareness
Mhm.
um, about things I could have done better or differently.
Mm.
And I just have to give myself grace and
Yeah.
realize that I was carrying a lot then. And I did my best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what a gift to give your kids. You didn't ask for any of this. They will always know that. But to
Yeah.
be able to see their mom fight like hell for herself, that's such a legacy. When we think about teaching, all the lessons we teach our kids, over the course of a lifetime, there's a lot of them. But this one is such a huge one that's, I guarantee, going to change their lives. And one day when they need to get
Yeah.
help, or they need to reach out, or they're not going to think twice, because they saw their badass mom fight to surround herself with such a holistic, amazing team, and they know what health looks like. And I don't think, as parents, we don't always do that for our kids. And so while, yes, it has clearly been such a tragedy for your family, I do wonder if there's this underlying gift, though, that your kids will get that not everybody gets too.
Well, so my husband obviously didn't finish in 2013. He didn't finish the marathon, and hard. That was hard.
Mm.
But we went back for the 5-year anniversary of the bombing, and we took the kids with us. And so we were all at the finish line together when he finished. And um, it was a really good way for us to show them that um, we can do hard things. We wanted them to see us doing something hard and finishing. And I think for both of us, it was very hard to be there. I mean, it was hard for him to run that far, and the weather was horrible that day, and it was hard for me to stand there too. So, yeah, I'm happy we've brought them along on this ride. It's been worthwhile for sure.
Sure. I got
Yeah.
goosebumps like the size of Texas up and down my body when you were just talking about that. That had to have been such a powerful, but did it feel cathartic at all? Was it therapeutic
Yeah,
to
it
go
was
back?
very peaceful to go back, and the year before that, we were able to connect with a large group of other survivors, and that has been hugely cathartic for me, to not have like carry the loneliness on my own of this survivor experience. So I think having them there, having that group around us and their love, and obviously all of our friends and family giving us their love, it was very peaceful for both of us to be there.
Yeah. Why don't you
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit more? Because I think that, that support is so critical, but it has to look different, right? Like friends and family that weren't there
Mhm.
versus survivors or other people that have experienced some sort of a trauma, whether it was there or not.
Mhm.
How, because I know I've helped support family and friends too. And if you haven't gone through something, it hits different than
Yeah.
finding a community of other people that have been through something. What
Yeah.
was the journey of that support? Of course, I imagine you have all sorts of people that were wrapping you in love as it all happened, but especially in the long run,
Yeah.
how does that support change? What does that look like
Mhm.
now?
Oh gosh. So it was 2015. Wait, 17. I'm trying to think of the years now. They've gone so fast.
Yeah.
2017. And my husband read an article in the Boston Globe about a survivor who was also standing in the bleachers. She could have been standing next to me. I don't know.
Mm.
And she has a very similar story with PTSD. And so I read the article. I contacted her right away, through, I don't even know how. I just Googled her name, and then somehow it led me to her. And she said, I have to get you in touch with this group called Strength to Strength, and they support victims of terror all over the world. And you have to be a part of it. Like, it has helped me so much. So um, we happened to be going back to Massachusetts at the time of the anniversary of the bombing that year, and I was able to connect with a lot of the Boston people there, and it was incredible. And then I, within a few months, met the woman who started the group. Her name is Sari Singer. She survived a bus attack in Israel 20 years ago. And she puts together, through Strength to Strength, retreats a couple of times a year for victims all over the world. And my husband and I were fortunate to go to a retreat that following November. So April, I met everyone, and by November, we're at this retreat in New York City, meeting all of these survivors and hearing everybody's stories. And it was so powerful for him to have the support of other spouses there and bereaved family members. And, like, he needed that support to know that he wasn't alone. And I don't even, with and with these people, I don't even have to really explain how I'm feeling. They just know. We have like this shared knowing. And the thing I love so much about Strength to Strength is they partner us up with other survivors, and that kind of becomes like your buddy. And my buddy, his name is Tom. He's a 9/11 survivor, and we're able to just really take care of each other and always, have our phones on and ready to receive each other's calls or texts. And yeah, so that's kind of how we've gotten to know other people who've been through something like this, and the way that they have embraced our family and our kids, and they've watched them grow. It has just been really, really huge for all of us. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing. And then you have your family and friends too, that I
Yeah.
imagine have been through it all with you this whole time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So earlier you mentioned, and I'm going to go back a hot sec here, EMDR, and not everybody knows what that is. Can you talk about
Okay.
what your experience has been with EMDR, eye desensitization, no, eye movement,
Eye movement
desensitization,
and reprocessing.
reprocessing? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so EMDR, there's a couple of different ways that I have it has been presented to me in the last several years. So it's either with vibrating tap, like paddles that you hold, lights in your eyes, sounds in your ears that are alternating. And now my therapist uses a lot of like kind of like a wand to confuse me while it's happening. But also she'll have me like tap different parts of my body, say different words. I don't know. All of this happening while you are working on a memory or a trigger to understand what that trigger means in your life, or to desensitize the trigger, so that the information isn't causing you anxiety or depression or unrest anymore, basically. And so all of that sensory overload basically desensitizes the brain and helps you create new neural pathways, and helps your brain reprocess whatever trauma you've had.
And
So
and the experience for you, it sounds like, has been life-changing.
yeah, like I said, I've seen her for a while, and I just saw her um middle of last month, and I had one of the biggest aha moments I've had in a long time. Um, it has helped me gain so much awareness about myself, and um, yeah, I mean, it's exhausting,
Mhm.
but it is very effective.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So I always like to say, through pain, then comes purpose.
Mhm.
And you have taken a devastating tragedy and you have turned it into something beautiful. And your website, on a side note, is gorgeous. I
Thank
was
you.
was I messaged you yesterday when I was
I
going
know.
through your stuff just to look at it. I was like, this is the most beautiful website. And it just
Thank
is
you.
so not just visually appealing, but I could spend all day on there learning about you and the things that you've done. So stillbloomingme.com.
Yes. Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what your experience has resulted in, and what you've done and where
Yeah.
you're heading with it? I think it needs to be elevated because you've done some
Thank
tremendous
you.
things.
Oh my gosh. Well, the way it started really was out of the hospital. I was searching online, for information about PTSD. And again, like I said, and rightfully so, the conversation and the information was very like veteran military focused. And I didn't see myself represented in the conversation. And and so I decided, well, then I can just build this, and maybe I'll just start sharing like things that I'm doing, if it's acupuncture or the Call Me Go device, which is a breathing device that I love, or certain natural supplement, or whatever it is. I'm just going to share my experience, even if it's bad, like even if I'm not feeling better or I'm having a crappy day, like I'm just going to share it here. And I didn't really think it would go anywhere. I just thought it would be cathartic and creative and a place where I could share. And so far I have readers in like, oh my God, so many countries
Everywhere.
and everywhere. And I've written for Maria Shriver a few times. I've contributed to many other blogs and mental health publications, and I speak to wonderful people like you all the time. And if I think where I am with it now is I remember when I was at my sickest and I really needed like an example of someone who had been through that, who had come out the other side and was living their beautiful life alongside PTSD. I needed that example. And I did get that in so many of my survivor friends. And so I feel now, if I can be that for other people, even if they're on the other side of the country, of the world or whatever, that's my goal. And that's what I want to do. So yeah, so I just keep going.
I love it. And you have reached so many
Thank you.
people. What would you say is your biggest learning piece that you've learned, whether it's engaging with others, from others, doing this? Because you've had Still Blooming Me, even though you thought of
Yes.
it in the hospital. When did
Yeah.
it come to fruition?
I started publishing in January of 2017.
Okay, so in that
So,
time, what are some of your takeaways that you've
oh my
learned?
gosh, so much.
I know, right? We
I
probably need a few
mean,
more hours.
well, I'm learning a lot right now because I am starting to do a lot more with the blog. It will be changing and growing here in the next year. I'm kind of at a place now where I don't know how to reach more people. I haven't really explored that. And so things will be changing technically like that in the future. The content won't change really. Um, the things I've learned about myself are, you know, that life is crazy. It's hard. And people are reaching out and are sharing. And that's really what motivates me to keep sharing, because there are times in this where I've thought, well, maybe I've shared it all. Maybe I've done enough. And then someone will reach out and ask for a resource um or advice, and then it just kind of remotivates me. So I think, like anything in life, you're always, if you're not growing and changing, then it's life is stagnant. So that's kind of where I'm at with Still Blooming Me, and I'm excited for what's to come. I think it's going to grow even more.
I love that. And I
Yeah.
think it is such a vital resource. You mentioned when this all started, there weren't a lot of people talking about PTSD outside of
Mhm.
military wars,
Mhm.
conflicts. And while we're making advancements, we have a long ways to go, right? And so a lot of people and a lot of families that I work with are always trying to seek resources. If you were to give advice to a person that had a loved one, whether it was their child or a partner or just
Mhm.
a friend, that had experienced some sort of a trauma, what would your advice to them be to support that person?
Oh my gosh. I would say that we are so lucky right now to be living with PTSD, or um, have someone in our lives who has PTSD, because so much research is going into PTSD. So much money is going into different resources that are available. I mean, it is incredible what I see and the people that I work with now. you can stay home for the rest of your life, and there are great resources available to you to help you heal.
Yeah.
I can share a few. Rewire Therapy, they offer these workshops that you can use from the comfort of your own home to heal. So they have vagal toning classes, sleep workshops. They even have classes tailored to certain specific traumas like sexual assault and abuse. Um, Incredible world-renowned trauma specialists are teaching these, and you can literally chime in on your own time from your own home. You don't even have to get out of bed, and there are people that can help you through this. Space of Mind is another great resource I love. They offer virtual support groups. So they have so many different support groups. I just took one 2 weeks ago called From Triggered to, I forget what it was called, From Triggered to Calm or something like that. It had maybe a little bit more of a creative name, but we worked with a somatic healer who ran a breath work meditation for us on a Sunday afternoon from London. She was in London, I was in Phoenix, and I participated in it, and it was incredible from the comfort of my own home. I am also working with a company right now called Telesage or Sage SR. They have an online mental health screening questionnaire that you can take. It takes about 20 minutes. It's literally a $15 questionnaire, and it will give you a detailed report that you can share with your doctor or therapist, and it basically diagnoses you. They diagnose about 35 different mental health challenges. So these are just a few of the things that I love. There are apps, there are handheld, tangible resources you can use. It just goes to show that if you have PTSD, you are not alone. You are not alone. People are focused on helping you, and you can get better.
I love that. And you
Yeah.
may have just answered my last question for you. If you had any parting advice to those that have walked through a tragedy or a trauma and wherever they're at in their journey, what would your advice be to them? And maybe it's what you just said.
I mean, start small, be gentle with yourself, even if it is just going outside, laying in your grass and looking up. The world is so much bigger than what you're feeling right now, and you will heal. It will take time, and you'll need to take care of yourself, but you will get through it. And I believe that with like my whole being. I believe that.
Elena, you are such a gift. You have been through so much, but I have immense gratitude for you that you have not only been able to navigate your journey, but you're helping so many other people with theirs. You will never know the full extent of your impact. We never know all of the people's lives we're changing and saving, but I have no doubt that yours is vast and wide.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, it's true. So if people want to reach out to you, can they on your website?
Yeah,
Is that the
they
best
definitely
place?
can. Yeah. So my website is stillbloomingme.com. Instagram, I'm pretty active on Instagram. So my handle's at stillbloomingme. You can email me through either the website or Instagram, or direct message me, and I'm pretty responsive. So
Awesome. Well, it has been such an honor. I have been so excited and geeked out that you were willing to talk with me. And
oh, of course.
oh my gosh, it was just, it exceeded my expectations of how
Oh,
amazing you are. So if you have not followed Still Blooming Me, you definitely need to go follow her. Check out her website because it's absolutely gorgeous. And it has been just so wonderful getting to visit with you. And I hope that we can continue to connect and talk again
yes, I
because
would love
I have
that.
just learned so much from you. I was over here feverishly taking notes.